Hello and welcome to ASMR Chess. Today we are going to learn the Traxler Counter-Attack that you can play as black to absolutely crush your opponents in chess. So what you're looking at here is a very, very common position. Before I talk more about it, I want to tell you a little bit about what it is that we want to achieve. What is it that you want to learn about this attack watching this video so that you can utilize it to the maximum effect in your games. What is the idea? The idea is that you as the black player are going to anticipate a very, very common attacking idea for white that in particular many beginners like to play, called the fried liver attack. And what we have here with now knight is exactly the fried liver. And the main move against this is pawn to d5, but we are going to play something else, and we are going to trick white into thinking that they tricked us. We are going to trick white into thinking that white is winning the game with their aggressive idea, because we are going to allow them to do their aggressive idea. We're going to allow them to do their plan, but we are going to, in a very sneaky and devious way, we are going to destroy them by seemingly making a blunder. So, in order to do this, there are some checkmating patterns that you will need to know. There are some tricks that you will need to know, and in this video I will show you all of those tricks. Alright, so we back up to the starting position so that I can explain every move in a little more detail, because we really want to understand not just the moves but the ideas behind the moves. If you are facing pawn to e4, the king's pawn, in a chess game, you are probably not surprised. This is the most played move by beginners and also by grandmasters. We respond symmetrically with e5. They play knight f3 to attack the pawn, and we play knight c6 to defend the pawn. All of this very standard and logical. They now play bishop c4, setting up a potentially deadly attack that we will use against them. We play knight to f6, sort of ignoring this bishop move that is looking at f7. Okay, and from this position there are many, many things that white can do, but there is this opening called the fried liver, where white basically tries to cash in immediately, win straight out of the opening, and it is a real opening. Grandmasters play this, not only beginners, but it is in particularly popular among beginners. So what is the idea? The idea is this knight that we looked at before, and white is simply coordinating an attack on the weakest square in the position, the f7 square. This is the focal point for many openings, where white really tries to go for the weakest square that is only protected by the king. The scholars made, for instance, is a different beginner opening that also goes after the weakness on f7. And the main lines here, and what white will expect to see if they are like club player level, or they're really, you know, if they're really a chess nerd who watches cool ASMR chess videos on YouTube, for instance the video I made about this opening, they will expect you to play pawn to d5, because they will expect you to be so afraid of this knight coming in here, and that's the whole point. If white were to move again, knight coming here, attacking the queen and the rook at the same time, the queen moves, you capture the rook, white should be winning, right? So d5, that's the normal way to try and meet this. But we are not going to play that. We are going to pretend that we blundered, that we made a huge mistake, that we didn't see the threat, and we are going to play bishop to c5 as if it was not necessary to protect this pawn. And this is now no longer the fried liver attack. This is the Traxler Counter-Attack. Yeah. And now we're going to have some fun. Alright? So, in this position, what white plays is, of course, to cash in. And there are two moves here. And I'm going to mostly cover knight takes, because I think in 89% of the games in the Lichess database, that is what people play. But there's also bishop takes with check, which we will also look at, just so that you have a well-rounded idea on how to handle the attacking ideas with this amazing, awesome counterattack. So very happily, white goes in, snacks on the pawn, yum yum yum, and is saying, I will either capture your queen, if you move it, I will capture your rook. You cannot capture my knight, because I have it defended by the bishop, you patzer. If they are very rude, they may say something like that, because they think that you just messed this whole thing up. But have you ever heard in chess that they say that you shouldn't move the same piece in the opening more than once unless it's really, really necessary? There is a reason for that. The reason now is that this knight took 1, 2, 3 steps to get here, right? And we use those moves not to move our pieces again and again and again, but to put a bunch of pieces into play. That gives us the initiative, and that allows us to come in with a bang. So the first thing we do is we want to get this king exposed so that we can throw a bunch of check and get our pieces nearer to get a checkmate. And the way we do that is the whole point of the Traxler. It's the bishop on c5. It comes in and captures, and that is check. Of course, white can refuse to capture this bishop and could go e2 or f1. And I'm also going to look at those moves. They are not being played a whole lot, almost inevitably or almost always. Well, the white player will capture this bishop, and that's where all the most important theory lies. So let's take a look. King takes f2. So now we got rid of a defensive pawn. We got the king closer to our pieces, and we have now this diagonal possibly towards the king, and we have this file possibly towards the king, and we can come in with this knight and throw this check. That's what we're going to do. Knight takes e4, and that is check. So we are utilizing the power of the check in order to speed up our development so that the white player will not have time for the necessary preventive measures. And I'm going to show you the particular moves that that you will need to know and learn about. But remember that thing about this diagonal towards the king and this file towards the king, okay? Because those are not concrete moves necessarily, but those are concepts, ideas, attacking ideas that will be a vital part of your chess vocabulary in the Traxler. Those are attacking ideas that you will use in many, many different variations, even if your opponent plays something that I don't quite cover in the video, because of course I could make a 15-hour-long video trying to explain every move, but I will explain the most crucial ones, and then you can use the ideas from those variations to string together your own attacking ideas if you are faced with something you have not seen before. So the king is in check now, and this has all been very, 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 very forcing, and like millions of games, literally millions of games in the database goes exactly like this. Now the question is where the king can go. And the cool thing is that 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the options, of the 6 options, they lose on the spot. We will cover those, but the most popular move in this position is possible for white to survive, but we have some great attacking ideas there that I will share. So the most popular move is king to e3. So this move is about renewing the threat of looking at the queen and looking at the rook, right? So if we try to, for instance, save the knight that is currently being attacked by the king, we lose the queen, that won't work. If we save the queen by going maybe here, we lose the rook, the king is under attack as well. So what do we do? So here we play a move that's very easy to remember, because at this time in the game you are almost always going to play this move. Doesn't really matter where the king go, you're going to play the same move every time. We want to get the queen closer to the king, and we want the queen to defend the knight. There is one move that satisfies both of those conditions, and that is queen to h4. Queen to h4 also threatens a bunch of stuff, and here is the main checkmating pattern of the Traxler counter-attack. Your opponent may in this position say, oh, you think you are threatening checkmate here, but that's not checkmate. I can capture the knight, or I could even come here. So I'm not that afraid of your queen coming out. And therefore I have time now to capture the rook. And now we have a forced checkmate, because this king really is too exposed. We just have to know the correct order of moves. So the first thing we do is we want to play this queen here with this check at the correct time, but right now king takes knight is unpleasant for us. So what we do is we give this check first, queen to f4 check. And it's the same checkmating pattern if the king goes here, but if he goes here, it's a little bit, it takes one more move, so I will show that. So there you go check now, because the king cannot capture the knight. The queen is nicely protected by the knight. There's only one legal move, king to d3 rather. Knight b4 check. Notice that the king cannot come here because of the knight, and the only legal move is to capture the knight now. So what is the difference? Why didn't we play this first? Why is it important that we got the knight out here with the tempo? Well, that is because the knight here looks at this square and at this square. So in this position, queen f4 is checkmate. Protected by the pawn, the queen protects the pawn attacks here along with the queen attacks here, 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 and the knight here and here. So that is checkmate, and that is something that is in the database for hundreds of thousands of games. White has lost exactly like this. You know me, what I do when I study openings is I repeat a lot. So I'll go to the next variation now, but I will go all the way back to the starting position. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4. This is called the Italian. This is called the two knights defense, knight f6, and this is the fried liver now with knight, and we hit them with the Traxler, bishop to c5. They come in and capture our pawn, thinking that they are winning and that we made a huge mistake. We lure the king out, or rather we force the king out. Bishop takes f2 check, king takes f2. And do you remember the move here? So there's something, we want the queen over here on this diagonal here. The knight is in the way, the knight can get out with a check. Knight takes e4, and that is check. Something that you could also see after king to e3 with an attack on the knight and the queen coming out, you could see white kind of realizing that maybe capturing this rook is not a good idea. Maybe they should try to defend this, and particularly they may notice that this square here, this check here, will make it possible for you to get some sort of very strong attack. So what they could do could be to play g3, and the point of g3 is it attacks the queen, and it also takes away this square, and it also stops the queen from ever coming to f2 via this diagonal. And here we again have a bunch of tricks that we are going to throw at white to have a great time. So what do you do? There is a little thing here about the bishop and the knight being unprotected. You notice that? The knight is protected by the bishop, but if the bishop goes, the knight won't be protected. And that actually allows us to sacrifice some material. Look at this. Knight takes g3, because now the queen can see the bishop. And they think, oh, this is all fine. H takes, you can't come in and capture my rook. It's defended by the queen. If you take the pawn, I can get back, and I will snag on your rook at some point, and it's not that big of a deal. But we are not concerned about this pawn right now. We're actually leaving the king side, going all over to the queen side. And here you have to remember like a little nuance. Might be very tempting to just come in and capture the bishop, but that's not what we're doing. We are giving a check first on d5. And why is that? That is because when the king moves, can either go here, look at that in a second, or here, we can now capture the bishop with check. No matter what they do, they play this, we don't care. We capture the knight, and we have regained our material with a great interest. So this king is now toast basically, and the theory ends here. You're looking to maybe bring the rook to f8, play d5, and just have a lot of fun. This is a lot easier to play, and it's technically winning. Okay, so there may be just one small other thing. I mean, there is a lot of these variations that contain very crucial ideas, and I don't want this to backfire, right? For you, I don't want you to only know like one of the checkmating patterns and then going for that in a slightly different position where it's a slightly different checkmating pattern you're going after. So that's why I'm showing you all of this. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, knight the right liver, bishop c5, the Traxler, knight takes f7, bishop takes f2, check, king takes. All of this you're going to see a million times, and knight takes e4 with check. So there are a bunch of other places where this king can go. And let's take a look at the different places the king can go and what we want to do about it. How about king to e1? So you remember that I said that on this move we play the same thing always. We play queen h4. In this position, it's check. Not only is it check, it's threatening all of the same stuff that we saw in the first variation. If the king goes up, we have check, and it's actually a transposition into the exact same position that we saw earlier. So the only way to avoid that would be to play g3, but you probably already have an idea about what we are playing against g3. So we can use sort of the same idea. Knight takes g3, knight takes g3 actually, or knight to g3 in general, is always very important to consider. And now they can either try capturing the rook, in which case we're going to win with a discovered check like this here and checkmate. So that's not what they're doing. They're taking here, that was their plan, giving up this rook with check and bishop coming back. In this very nice little position, you can either castle again, or you can just play rook f8. So let's say you castle. So what's the problem? The problem is that if they move the knight trying to save it somewhere, you can now checkmate like this, backed up by the rook, of course. And if they don't do that, they will just lose the knight anyway, and you will threaten checkmate anyway, and you will have this super strong attack and a very, very convincing and winning advantage. And notice that, for instance, queen here doesn't protect the knight. We just capture with our own queen, and queen here, it's the same. We capture with our own queen. So there's no way. There's simply no way. So king to e1 loses. Let's take a look at some of the other options. Okay. Doop, doop, doop. Doop, doop, doop. Doop, doop, doop. Doop. And here. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, and knight to b5, g5, sorry. The fried liver attack, bishop c5, the Traxler, knight takes f7, bishop takes f2, check, king takes f2, knight takes e4, check. So we saw how king here didn't work. So what about if the king goes, let's say, here, king to f1? Well, you will get 1 million ASMR points, which will allow you to sleep immediately, by the way, if you can guess the move. should be quite easy actually, because it's the same move that it always is. Queen to h4. So that is really obvious by now that one of the main ideas in the Traxler is that when we sacrifice this bishop, it's because we want to have this checkmating threat that we will either use to deliver actual checkmate or to put so much pressure on our opponent that they will have to give up a bunch of material and have a very bad position in order to stave off the checkmate. Now, how do we try to stop this checkmate? So we know about this. They could try something like this, for instance, to cover this. Cover different places you can put the queen. They all lose. And you can see, for instance, with the queen coming here, we can see a very, very cool idea, because this is what is known as a ghost variation. This is a variation where we use an idea that we've seen before. In a lot of these g3 ideas, we come in and capture with the knight. We can actually do that anyway without g3 having been played. Knight check like this. Because do you remember the whole thing about the bishop and the knight? And how we can take those in succession with a great advantage. So they have to capture with the queen, because otherwise we just capture the rook. And now we get the same thing. Check. King moves. And here. And we just have a far superior position. We're ready to castle and have control of the center. They have no development. The king can never castle. King's stuck in the middle. Queen is even a target. We are very, very happy. So that also doesn't work. Now I'm going to show you something that could work for white. The best try, and also after king to e3, the second most played move in the position. The best way to hide. And I will show you some devious tricks that we can throw against white if they try to get out of the Traxler like that. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, knight g4, 5, the Traxler, or the fried liver, and bishop c5, the Traxler, knight takes on f7, bishop takes on f2, king takes on f2, knight takes e4 with check. We've seen all this before, but what about trying to tuck the king away on g1? So there's no surprises as of now. We are still playing queen h5. That's one of the really nice things about the Traxler, that we get these ghost variations where we can use similar ideas. We just have to avoid confusing them. So this is threatening this checkmate. Okay. And there is just small difference now. Okay, just a small difference. When they play g3, we are still capturing, and pawn takes. But now there's we cannot capture this rook, right? And we cannot capture this bishop with check. So that's really the issue. The king is protecting the rook, and our queen is under attack, and we cannot capture here with check, so we don't get another move, and that will make it possible for white to start their own counterattack. We do not want that. So we play queen takes g3 check. Now there is only one legal move, and that is king to f1. And here it looks like one of those positions. Looks so close to what we have seen before, and in all of those positions we've seen before, we could castle. We could castle there. But now we can't. Why? We do want the rook on f8, so that we are playing rook f8. But I want you to understand why we are not castling to get the rook on f8. Because we do not want the king here on g8. Because if we did castle like this, it looks very convincing, but now in this particular variation, queen h4 is actually threatening checkmate, and it gives us, or rather it gives our opponent way too much counterplay. We lost the grip of the position. We do not allow that, which is the reason that in this position here, with the rook here ready to back up the queen, we do not want the king in the corner. We don't want to expose ourselves to that attack. The king is more safe in the center, so rook to f8 is what we play. Maybe you can consider always looking at rook f8 first, because in most of the cases where you castle, it is almost as good to play rook f8. So maybe start by looking at that. So here it looks like, and I mean here white has better moves, but only master players find the better moves. Amateur players, myself included, plays queen h5. I have queen h4. I have stopped playing queen h4 because I have analyzed this quite deeply to make this video, but that's what all the amateurs play. That is what you can expect to see, because this looks super duper deadly, right? The queen is ready to give like this knight check. It's a double check from, so we can capture the knight because it's also check from the queen and everything. The problem is, of course, that with all this firepower aiming at the king, they can't get to the king because of their own king, and the fact that this knight is pinned to the king by the rook, so this knight cannot move, and white is now losing after queen to h5. But how? We want to understand that. It's very important, and the reason that I'm including this one of the sort of attacking ideas is that we will see a new concept in the Traxler now with d5. And this concept is useful not only in this variation, but in many things that you will encounter in your adventures with the Traxler. And what is this about? Can't this pawn just be captured? Well, it can, but we will win. We are winning now. So let's take a look at why we are doing what we are doing. First of all, if they just move the bishop, we are simply capturing the knight with the rook protected by the king. That is check. We are going to win. So they will have to take the pawn to keep defending the knight that cannot move because of the precarious situation of the king. And here the secret tricky move to find, if you don't know it, is knight b4, attacking the bishop. And the point is that there's really no way for this bishop to save itself while protecting the knight, because we also have a different attacking idea with the knight. We want to capture on c2 and actually throw the whole idea of capturing a rook in the corner with the knight just back in their face. So people play bishop b3 back here, saying, okay, I just defend this, no problem. But it is a problem because you capture it anyway, and they will realize that they actually cannot capture the knight, because then you capture the knight here. That is check, backed up by the king. queen cannot take, they lose the queen, and we have a checkmating attack. Which means that really the best move in this position is knight c3, just giving up the rook in the corner. And now you have 5 pawns and a rook against 2 pieces, 2 minor pieces, and 2 pawns. So you're up 2 points of material. That's not even the most important part. The most important part is that you are still having an absolutely devastating attack against the king. This knight, they have to fight for their right to have this knight survive the night, and they won't even succeed in most cases. While you are just going to, you know, wreak havoc with your bishop, maybe coming here, check, like other rook can join the battle. All the while this queen is defending this pawn, so the queen can come in here and capture it, and you're just going to have a wonderful time winning all of these games in this variation. So let's go and look at some of the other crucial ideas that we need to know. So we put the pieces back. I hope you're having a relaxed time listening to this. And, you know, I don't care at all if you don't follow along. I had a poll on my channel. I asked my viewers, you awesome people, I asked how good you were at chess, and I think like 12% or something said they don't even play chess. So if this is all just nonsense to you, but you find it relaxing anyway, that's absolutely fine by me. I just want you to have a good and relaxing time. If you learn something as well, I mean, that's also cool. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, knight g4, the fried liver, bishop c5, the Traxler, and what about if they don't capture our bishop? That's sort of the main question we could be asking ourselves to understand the ins and out of the Traxler. What if bishop takes f2 check and they don't capture the bishop? If they go here, I urge you to try and study that yourself. That was the first thing the guy named Traxler analyzed all the way back in 1890, some 134 years ago. And there's some cool checkmating ideas here where you can sacrifice the queen and all kinds of stuff. Maybe I can make a follow-up video on that if you want. This is not a challenge. You can win in many ways from here. The challenge is if they play king to f1. That's the challenge. And here we want to combine some ideas from what we have learned so far about the Traxler. But the first thing we have to understand is that with the king going to f1, we don't have knight e4 check. So that's the main, they are robbing us of our main idea. If we try to play this, they capture our queen. Not very nice. So, in this situation, we want to play queen to e7, which saves the queen. And the point here is that the point of showing you this variation, which is a very deep idea and contains a lot of sub-variations, is to show you the critical idea that you will need for black to keep the attack going after queen to e7. So here in most games they play knight takes. So they think, okay, I had to surrender castling rights, I just moved my king. I was too afraid to capture the bishop. I just put the king here. I lost the pawn. I can't castle, but I got the rook. And what you need to know here is that with the king on f1 and the bishop in front here, we want to bring in more pieces to the attack, and we want to understand that we can also checkmate the queen. So we play d5. So that is again a ghost variation from something you saw earlier, and this is opening up this bishop with tempo against this bishop. The point here is basically no matter what they do, go somewhere, capture it. For instance, we have a very nice and winning idea, which is bishop to g4. Not check to the king. But what do we notice about the queen? She is trapped. There's just no way that she can get out, because this is defended by the bishop. These are blocking her exit, and the bishop is defended by the knight. And if the knight would not, by capturing the queen, be defending this bishop, maybe there would be play in this position for white, but they can't continue capturing. They can't capture the bishop because it is being defended very nicely like this. And again, they just lost their queen, and they will lose the game from here. So those are almost all of the crucial things that you need to know playing against the fried liver with the Traxler. But there is one thing, and I commend you if you are still listening and learning. At this point, you are going to be very happy. I commend you for doing so, because there is a critical other move right in the beginning of the Traxler that your opponent may throw at you, and you will have to know what you're doing there. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, knight g5, always mess that up, and bishop c5, and not knight takes f7. You're going to see that 9 out of 10 games. But what if they play bishop takes f7 with a check? Now what? So here you this is the best try for white. If white plays this correctly, you're not going to destroy them like you're doing in almost all the other variations, but you still have plenty of play and will be able to raise hell against them. You just have to know where to put the king, because there's a right place and there's a wrong place. And the wrong place is here. You're not going here. You're going to e7. That is the important thing. And immediately most of your opponent will mess up here, because they will try play d3 or knight c3 or something, get the ball rolling with an attack. They think, we got the king out, and the problem is, of course, that these pieces are lacking support. So you just play h6. This kicks the knight away. The knight has to go somewhere. Let's say it goes back here. Now it's no longer defending the bishop. You capture the bishop, and you're winning. And you're going to win a bunch of games like that. But what if they understand that? What if they go all the way back to b3? Now you play rook to f8. because you have a lot of activity going on, because this guy has moved 1, 2 times, and this bishop have moved 1, 2, 3 times. So you have now 2 knights, a bishop, a pawn, and a rook in the attack. You did sacrifice a pawn for that, and you did sacrifice the king's safety, but really with this little activity for white, with only so few pieces developed, that is not a major issue. So here the most popular move is castles. Let's say they play that to show the idea. The idea here is pretty simply that you play d6. And with d6, you open up this bishop. And this bishop is looking, for instance, like in many other variations, to come here. And it's pretty tough now, because let's say knight c3, you can, for instance, kick this knight away at first. And they want to plunk it in here. But you got all of that covered multiple times, so they have to go back. And now you come in, you pin the knight to the queen. And you will maybe have ideas of moving this knight, capturing here when the queen can't be captured because the rook, so they have to capture with the pawn opening up their king. Then the queen slides over, and you will just have a fun game here. If they are playing in this way with bishop takes, they are playing the right way. And with correct play, white will have a nice advantage that a grandmaster would be able to utilize to get a very nice position. But for us mortal people, this is just a very nice, very playable position. If this is the worst you can do out of an opening, I think you are very, very happy. It's fun, and in reality, in praxis, I should say, you're just having a great time here. And it's not like the computer says that white is crushing and it's like +3 or something. It's plus 1.1 or something. So that is the Traxler. I hope you had a great time. If you have some lines you want covered, or you have some questions, feel absolutely free to throw them in the comments. If you want to buy the chess set here, the pieces, I have a link in the description. They're made by World Chess. These pieces are actually the design that they play the World Chess Championship with. So yeah, it's very nice, and the link in the description gives you a 10% discount on everything they sell in that shop. All the World Chess, they're called World Chess, on all their products, all their chess sets, all their things, all their pieces. And yeah, there's of course also a Patreon. You can come and hang out in the Patreon. We have a lot of fun there, and it's a way to support the channel. There are sometimes exclusive videos, and we have, competitions. Not that long ago, we had a tournament amongst the patrons where the winner, the Frenchman, Bilou, won a very nice Chess-Up 2 board. Yeah, so it's a cool place to hang out, and it would help me tremendously to try and get more videos rolling and get the quality better of them, and so other than that, I just want to say thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you had a great time. I hope that you are fast asleep now, and I hope I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.